Question 1. A Scrum Master observes that the organizational structure heavily relies on functional silos, creating significant impediments to value delivery for multiple Scrum teams. Which action is most appropriate for the Scrum Master to take? A. Advocate for immediate organizational restructuring to align with product lines. B. Coach management and stakeholders on the impact of functional silos on empiricism and flow, suggesting experiments. C. Facilitate a Scrum of Scrums meeting more frequently to address cross-team dependencies caused by silos. D. Focus solely on optimizing the performance of individual Scrum teams, as organizational structure is outside their influence. Answer: B. Coach management and stakeholders on the impact of functional silos on empiricism and flow, suggesting experiments. The Scrum Master's role extends beyond the team to the entire organization, particularly in addressing systemic impediments that hinder agility and value delivery. Functional silos often prevent cross-functional collaboration and create handoffs, which contradict Scrum's principles of self-management and flow. Coaching management on how these structures impact empiricism, the ability to learn and adapt based on experience, and encouraging them to experiment with new ways of working, such as forming cross-functional product teams, is a key responsibility for a PSM2. For instance, explaining how a delay in a marketing review due to a silo impacts the overall sprint goal helps illustrate the problem. Remember, a great Scrum Master guides the organization toward self-organization, not by dictating changes but by fostering understanding and enabling continuous improvement. Question 2. The product owner of a large product spanning multiple Scrum teams is struggling to maintain a clear product goal and coherently order the product backlog. What is the most effective way a Scrum Master can help in this situation? A. Take over the product backlog ordering to ensure consistency across teams. B. Coach the product owner on advanced product backlog management techniques and stakeholder engagement. C. Direct the development teams to prioritize items they deem most valuable. D. Suggest splitting the product into smaller, independent products, each with its own product owner. Answer: B. Coach the product owner on advanced product backlog management techniques and stakeholder engagement. A Scrum Master supports the product owner in their crucial role, especially when managing complex products or multiple teams. The product owner is accountable for maximizing product value, which includes effectively managing the product backlog and engaging stakeholders to gather requirements and feedback. The Scrum Master's most impactful action is to coach the product owner, helping them refine their skills in areas like stakeholder communication, value prioritization, and articulating a clear product goal. For example, a Scrum Master might coach the product owner on how to facilitate effective workshops to gather input from diverse stakeholders. Always remember, the Scrum Master coaches but never dictates or takes over the accountability of other Scrum roles. Question 3. An organization is struggling with a culture of blaming individuals when mistakes occur, rather than focusing on process improvement. How should a Scrum Master best address this deep-rooted cultural impediment? A. Implement strict new rules for reporting failures to ensure accountability. B. Publicly highlight individual mistakes during sprint reviews to encourage transparency. C. Coach the organization's leadership on fostering psychological safety and a culture of continuous learning and empiricism. D. Insist that all mistakes be documented and formally reviewed by a disciplinary committee. Answer: C. Coach the organization's leadership on fostering psychological safety and a culture of continuous learning and empiricism. A blaming culture is a significant organizational impediment that undermines trust, collaboration, and the ability to learn from failures, which are all crucial for empiricism. The Scrum Master's role extends to coaching the wider organization, especially leadership, on how their actions and the environment they create influence the organizational culture. By promoting psychological safety, individuals feel safe to admit mistakes, learn, and innovate without fear of punishment, thus enabling continuous improvement. For instance, the Scrum Master might share case studies of organizations that have thrived by embracing a blameless postmortem approach. Encourage leaders to lead by example, promoting a learning mindset over a punitive one. Question 4. Several Scrum teams in an organization are finding it difficult to collaborate effectively due to dependencies on a shared component team that operates outside their direct control and uses a traditional waterfall approach. What is the primary responsibility of the Scrum Master in this scenario? A. Demand that the shared component team immediately adopt Scrum. B. Identify the dependencies and impediments, then coach organizational leadership on the impact and potential solutions for optimizing value flow. C. Integrate the component team into one of the existing Scrum teams. D. Advise the Scrum teams to work around the component team's dependencies as best they can. Answer: B. Identify the dependencies and impediments, then coach organizational leadership on the impact and potential solutions for optimizing value flow. When Scrum teams encounter systemic impediments like dependencies on external, non-agile teams, it becomes an organizational challenge that a Scrum Master must address. The Scrum Master's responsibility is to identify these dependencies and their negative impact on the flow of value, empiricism, and the Scrum team's ability to self-manage. They then work with organizational leadership and relevant stakeholders to educate them on these issues and explore systemic solutions, rather than forcing a specific methodology onto another team. For example, the Scrum Master might present data showing how delays from the component team consistently push back sprint goals. Always remember, the Scrum Master acts as a change agent, helping the organization understand and embrace agile principles through coaching and facilitating necessary changes. Question 5. The organizational leadership is asking the Scrum Master for detailed, long-term release plans and fixed-scope commitments for a product developed by multiple Scrum teams. How should the Scrum Master respond? A. Provide the requested plans and commitments to satisfy leadership, even if they are uncertain. B. Decline to provide any long-term forecasts, as Scrum embraces change. C. Coach leadership on the nature of empirical process control, the value of frequent inspection and adaptation, and how long-term forecasts are managed with a product goal. D. Commit to providing a release plan after every 3 sprints. Answer: C. Coach leadership on the nature of empirical process control, the value of frequent inspection and adaptation, and how long-term forecasts are managed with a product goal. Scrum is founded on empiricism, meaning that knowledge comes from experience and decisions are based on what is observed. Long-term fixed plans contradict this principle as they assume predictability where there is often uncertainty. The Scrum Master's role is to educate and coach stakeholders, including leadership, on how Scrum works, emphasizing that forecasting in an empirical environment involves frequent inspection and adaptation, guided by a product goal. For instance, the Scrum Master could explain how a product goal provides direction while sprints offer regular opportunities to reevaluate what's most valuable based on feedback. Help leadership understand that embracing uncertainty allows for greater flexibility and value delivery. Question 6. An organization's budgeting process is annual and project-based, making it difficult to fund continuous product development and cross-functional Scrum teams. What action should the Scrum Master take? A. Advise the Scrum teams to only work on projects that fit the existing budget structure. B. Coach organizational leaders and finance departments on alternative funding models that support agile product development, such as value stream funding. C. Temporarily assume the role of financial manager to allocate funds more flexibly. D. Focus on improving the velocity of the Scrum teams to complete projects faster within the current budget. Answer: B. Coach organizational leaders and finance departments on alternative funding models that support agile product development, such as value stream funding. Traditional annual, project-based budgeting often creates impediments for agile teams by focusing on fixed costs and scope rather than continuous value delivery and adaptive product development. A Scrum Master with a PSM2 understanding recognizes this as an organizational impediment and takes on the responsibility of coaching the broader organization, including finance and leadership. They should introduce concepts like value stream funding or budget allocation based on product lines, which better align with agile principles of continuous flow and empowered teams. For example, explaining how funding a stable team to continuously deliver product increments reduces overhead compared to starting and stopping project teams. Remember, the Scrum Master is an organizational change agent, challenging and improving the systemic processes that hinder agility. Question 7. The definition of done, DoD, across multiple Scrum teams working on the same product is inconsistent, leading to integration issues and technical debt. What is the most effective approach for the Scrum Master? A. Impose a standardized definition of done on all teams. B. Allow each team to maintain its own definition of done, as long as they are self-managing. C. Facilitate a collaborative discussion among all Scrum teams, the product owner, and relevant stakeholders to create a shared, product-level definition of done. D. Report the inconsistencies to management and ask them to resolve the issue. Answer: C. Facilitate a collaborative discussion among all Scrum teams, the product owner, and relevant stakeholders to create a shared, product-level definition of done. For multiple Scrum teams working on the same product, a consistent definition of done, DoD, is crucial to ensure that integrated increments are truly done and releasable, minimizing technical debt and integration headaches. While self-management is key, the teams collectively are accountable for creating a usable increment. The Scrum Master's role is to facilitate the conversation and consensus building among all involved Scrum teams, the product owner, and other relevant stakeholders, like operations or architecture. This collaborative approach builds shared ownership and understanding. For example, the Scrum Master might organize a workshop where teams share their current DoDs and together identify areas for standardization necessary for a single, integrated product. Strive to create alignment through collaboration, not mandates. Question 8. A Scrum Master is coaching an organization that views software development purely as a cost center, rather than a source of competitive advantage. How should the Scrum Master address this perspective? A. Advocate for a larger budget for the development department. B. Coach leadership on how agility can turn development into a value creation engine, demonstrating the economic benefits of fast feedback and reduced time to market. C. Focus on reducing the cost of development within the existing framework. D. Suggest outsourcing development to reduce internal costs. Answer: B. Coach leadership on how agility can turn development into a value creation engine, demonstrating the economic benefits of fast feedback and reduced time to market. An organization's perspective on software development significantly impacts its adoption of Scrum and its ability to capitalize on agility. If development is seen only as a cost, investments in quality, innovation, and continuous improvement may be neglected. The Scrum Master's advanced responsibility is to coach leadership on the strategic benefits of agility, helping them understand that rapidly delivering valuable increments and adapting to market changes can create significant competitive advantages and revenue streams. For instance, the Scrum Master could present case studies of companies that have outpaced competitors by embracing agile development. Your goal is to shift the organizational mindset from cost reduction to value maximization. Question 9. An organization is struggling with low morale and high turnover rates within its Scrum teams. What might be an underlying organizational impediment the Scrum Master should investigate and address? A. Individual performance reviews are based solely on sprint velocity. B. Lack of social events outside of work. C. Teams are not given enough autonomy to make decisions about their work. D. Insufficient budget for team training. Answer: C. Teams are not given enough autonomy to make decisions about their work. Low morale and high turnover often signal systemic issues within an organization, particularly a lack of empowerment or autonomy for teams. Scrum thrives on self-managing teams, where the development team is empowered to decide how best to accomplish the work and meet the sprint goal. When teams lack this autonomy, it can lead to disengagement, frustration, and a feeling of being micromanaged. A Scrum Master should investigate the extent to which the organization trusts its teams and coaches leadership on how empowering teams can boost morale and productivity. For example, if managers are constantly reassigning tasks or dictating technical solutions, it erodes the team's sense of ownership. Autonomy is a key driver of intrinsic motivation and team health. Question 10. The organization's traditional HR policies for performance reviews and career progression are based on individual contributions within functional silos, rather than collaborative, cross-functional team achievements. What is the Scrum Master's most effective approach to this organizational challenge? A. Ignore HR policies, as they are outside the Scrum team's control. B. Advise team members to focus on individual metrics to align with HR. C. Coach HR and management on how existing policies may undermine self-managing, cross-functional teams and suggest agile-friendly alternatives. D. Create a separate, internal performance review system for Scrum team members. Answer: C. Coach HR and management on how existing policies may undermine self-managing, cross-functional teams and suggest agile-friendly alternatives. Traditional HR policies often conflict with agile principles, especially those promoting individual performance over collective team success and cross-functional collaboration. The Scrum Master, operating at an organizational level, must engage with HR and leadership to explain how these policies can inadvertently discourage the very behaviors Scrum seeks to foster. The goal is to coach them on adopting agile-friendly HR practices, such as team-based performance incentives, peer feedback, and career paths that support T-shaped skills. For instance, the Scrum Master might facilitate a discussion on how rewarding individual heroics can deter a team from swarming on an urgent task together. Remember, cultural change often starts by influencing the systems and structures that shape behavior. Question 11. An organization has adopted Scrum for its development teams but still struggles with mini waterfalls within sprints, where different specialists, e.g., UI, backend, QA, work sequentially rather than collaboratively. What should the Scrum Master primarily focus on? A. Creating more specific tasks for each specialist role to define their work clearly. B. Coaching the development team on the importance of cross-functionality, swarming, and continuous integration to achieve the sprint goal collaboratively. C. Increasing the sprint length to accommodate the sequential handoffs. D. Recommending the use of a waterfall project management tool for better tracking of sequential tasks. Answer: B. Coaching the development team on the importance of cross-functionality, swarming, and continuous integration to achieve the sprint goal collaboratively. Mini waterfalls within a sprint indicate that the development team is not fully embracing cross-functionality and self-management, which are core tenets of Scrum. The Scrum Master's role is to coach the team to improve their way of working, emphasizing that all members are collectively responsible for delivering a done increment. This involves fostering a mindset where team members collaborate and swarm on items to achieve the sprint goal together, rather than passing work sequentially. For example, the Scrum Master might facilitate a discussion during a sprint retrospective on how handoffs introduce delays and suggest practices like pair programming or mob programming to foster shared understanding and continuous integration. Encourage the team to break down silos internally. Question 12. Organizational leadership frequently interrupts Scrum teams with urgent, ad hoc requests, derailing their sprint commitments and hindering their ability to deliver planned increments. What is the most effective action for the Scrum Master? A. Insist that all requests go through the Scrum Master first for prioritization. B. Coach leadership and the product owner on the importance of protecting the sprint goal and the product owner's accountability for product backlog ordering. C. Tell the development team to ignore all requests not from the product owner. D. Create a buffer of emergency items in the product backlog to accommodate ad hoc requests. Answer: B. Coach leadership and the product owner on the importance of protecting the sprint goal and the product owner's accountability for product backlog ordering. Frequent interruptions and ad hoc requests from leadership undermine the stability of sprints, prevent the team from achieving their sprint goal, and disrupt the product owner's accountability for maximizing value through product backlog ordering. The Scrum Master's responsibility is to coach both the leadership and the product owner on Scrum's principles, particularly the concept of a stable sprint backlog and the product owner as the single point of entry for all work. For instance, the Scrum Master might explain how each interruption impacts the team's focus and the predictability of delivery. Help everyone understand that for urgent needs, the product owner can adapt the product backlog in collaboration with the development team, but the sprint goal should be protected as much as possible. Question 13. A large organization is considering scaling Scrum across many teams working on different but related products. What foundational aspect should the Scrum Master emphasize to ensure effective scaling? A. Implementing a rigid scaled agile framework across all teams. B. Ensuring each Scrum team maintains its unique, independent definition of done. C. Fostering a clear product goal and a unified definition of done at the product level, ensuring transparency and alignment. D. Centralizing all decision-making to a single, scaling Scrum committee. Answer: C. Fostering a clear product goal and a unified definition of done at the product level, ensuring transparency and alignment. Effective scaling of Scrum is less about implementing a specific framework and more about maintaining the core principles of transparency, inspection, and adaptation at a larger scale. For multiple teams to deliver a coherent product, a clear, overarching product goal provides direction, while a unified definition of done ensures that all teams produce truly releasable increments that integrate seamlessly. Without these foundational elements, scaling can lead to chaos, integration issues, and diluted value. For example, if one team defines done as code complete and another as deployed to production, integration becomes a nightmare. Always remember that transparency and a shared understanding of what is being built and, when it's truly done, are paramount for successful scaling. Question 14. The product owner is struggling with stakeholder engagement, frequently missing key stakeholders in sprint reviews or receiving conflicting feedback after the increment is done. How can the Scrum Master best help the product owner address this challenge at an organizational level? A. Take over the stakeholder management responsibilities for the product owner. B. Coach the product owner on advanced stakeholder mapping and communication strategies, and potentially facilitate sessions with key organizational stakeholders. C. Advise the product owner to only invite stakeholders who consistently provide positive feedback. D. Suggest that the development team directly engage with all stakeholders to gather requirements. Answer: B. Coach the product owner on advanced stakeholder mapping and communication strategies, and potentially facilitate sessions with key organizational stakeholders. Effective stakeholder engagement is critical for the product owner to maximize the value of the product and ensure the increment meets user needs. When stakeholders are disengaged or provide conflicting feedback late in the process, it indicates a systemic issue in communication and transparency. The Scrum Master's role is to coach the product owner in improving these skills, potentially by helping them identify key stakeholders, understand their needs, and implement strategies for continuous engagement. For example, the Scrum Master might facilitate a meeting where the product owner can explain the sprint review's purpose to influential stakeholders, emphasizing their crucial role in providing timely feedback. A great Scrum Master empowers others to succeed, especially in navigating complex organizational dynamics. Question 15. The organization's sales team is making commitments to customers based on outdated roadmaps and estimates, leading to customer dissatisfaction and pressure on Scrum teams to deliver features outside their sprint commitments. What is the most appropriate action for the Scrum Master? A. Advise the sales team to stop making any commitments to customers. B. Coach the sales team and relevant stakeholders on the empirical nature of Scrum, the importance of frequent feedback, and how to use the latest increment for forecasts. C. Prioritize the sales team's requests immediately to avoid customer dissatisfaction. D. Recommend that the Scrum teams provide more detailed, long-term estimates to the sales team. Answer: B. Coach the sales team and relevant stakeholders on the empirical nature of Scrum, the importance of frequent feedback, and how to use the latest increment for forecasts. Misaligned expectations between sales and development are a common organizational impediment. Sales teams, accustomed to traditional fixed-scope contracts, may struggle with the empirical and adaptive nature of Scrum. The Scrum Master's role is to bridge this gap by coaching all relevant parties, including sales leadership, on how Scrum delivers value. This involves explaining that forecasts in Scrum are based on current knowledge and the latest, done, increment, which offers the most reliable basis for predictions. For instance, the Scrum Master could facilitate a session showing how consistently delivered increments provide a more accurate basis for future commitments than speculative long-term plans. Help the organization understand that adaptation and transparency lead to better customer satisfaction in the long run. Question 16. A Scrum Master observes that an organizational department consistently delays providing necessary infrastructure or environment setups, creating a bottleneck for all Scrum teams. How should the Scrum Master address this? A. Ask the development teams to work around the delays by using temporary solutions. B. Coach the department's leadership on the impact of their delays on value flow and overall organizational agility, exploring systemic solutions. C. Escalating the issue directly to the CEO for immediate resolution. D. Suggest the Scrum teams hire their own dedicated infrastructure engineers. Answer. B. Coach the department's leadership on the impact of their delays on value flow and overall organizational agility, exploring systemic solutions. Bottlenecks created by external departments are significant organizational impediments that prevent Scrum teams from delivering value efficiently. The Scrum Master's responsibility extends to identifying these cross-functional dependencies and coaching the involved departments and their leadership. They should help these leaders understand the financial and strategic impact of their delays on the entire value stream and work collaboratively to find systemic solutions, such as improving their own processes or aligning their priorities with product development. For example, the Scrum Master might present data showing how many development days are lost waiting for environments. Your goal is to foster an organizational mindset of optimizing the whole, not just individual departments. Question 17. The organization has established a Project Management Office, PMO, that insists on traditional project plans, Gantt charts, and phase gate reviews for products developed using Scrum. What is the Scrum Master's most strategic response? A. Comply with the PMO's requests to avoid conflict, while continuing Scrum practices internally. B. Coach the PMO and organizational leadership on the empirical nature of Scrum, demonstrating how Scrum's artifacts and events provide necessary transparency and control. C. Advise the Scrum teams to hide their Scrum practices from the PMO. D. Challenge the PMO's authority and demand they dissolve. Answer. B. Coach the PMO and organizational leadership on the empirical nature of Scrum, demonstrating how Scrum's artifacts and events provide necessary transparency and control. A traditional PMO's insistence on fixed plans and phase gate reviews often conflicts with Scrum's empirical, inspect and adapt approach. The Scrum Master's advanced role involves educating and influencing such organizational entities. The strategic response is to coach the PMO and leadership, explaining how Scrum's transparent artifacts, product backlog, sprint backlog, increment, and events, sprint review, provide superior visibility, control, and adaptability compared to static plans. For instance, the Scrum Master could demonstrate how the sprint review provides a much more frequent and meaningful inspection point than a quarterly phase gate review. Help them understand that Scrum provides control through rapid feedback and adaptation, not through rigid upfront planning. Question 18. An organization's leaders are primarily focused on maximizing resource utilization, keeping everyone busy, rather than maximizing value delivery. How should the Scrum Master address this perspective? A. Advocate for reducing the number of people on Scrum teams to improve utilization. B. Coach leadership on the principles of lean and flow, explaining that optimizing for resource utilization often leads to increased lead times and reduced value. C. Introduce more work into sprints to ensure everyone is always busy. D. Focus on increasing individual Scrum team velocity as the primary metric. Answer. B. Coach leadership on the principles of lean and flow, explaining that optimizing for resource utilization often leads to increased lead times and reduced value. A focus on maximizing resource utilization, keeping everyone 100% busy, is a common organizational anti-pattern that often leads to increased lead times, reduced quality, and a buildup of work in progress, WIP, ultimately hindering value delivery. The Scrum Master should coach leadership on lean principles, emphasizing that optimizing for the flow of value through the system is more beneficial than optimizing individual resource utilization. For example, explain how queues of waiting work, high WIP, are a form of waste, and how having some slack in the system allows for faster response to changes and improved quality. Help them understand that a system where everyone is busy may not be an efficient system. Question 19. An organization is struggling with a significant amount of technical debt, which is slowing down development and increasing the cost of change for all Scrum teams. What is the most impactful way a Scrum Master can help address this? A. Insist that the development teams dedicate an entire sprint solely to technical debt removal. B. Coach the product owner and organizational stakeholders on the long-term impact of technical debt on value delivery and the importance of including it in the product backlog. C. Advise the development teams to work overtime to fix technical debt after sprints. D. Suggest hiring an external team specifically for technical debt resolution. Answer. B. Coach the product owner and organizational stakeholders on the long-term impact of technical debt on value delivery and the importance of including it in the product backlog. Technical debt is a critical impediment to long-term value delivery and sustainable development. While development teams are accountable for quality, the decision to invest in addressing technical debt ultimately rests with the product owner and the organization. The Scrum Master's role is to make the invisible impact of technical debt visible, coaching the product owner and stakeholders on its costs, e.g., slower feature delivery, increased defects, reduced agility, and helping them understand why it's a critical investment to include in the product backlog. For instance, the Scrum Master might help the team quantify the time lost due to technical debt-related issues. Help the organization understand that addressing technical debt is an investment in future agility and sustainable value creation. Question 20. The organization's legal department is insisting on traditional, fixed-price contracts with external vendors, which makes it difficult to engage partners using agile approaches. How should the Scrum Master address this organizational constraint? A. Advise the Scrum teams to only work with internal resources. B. Coach the legal department and relevant stakeholders on agile contracting models that support iterative development and value-based agreements. C. Tell the legal department to relax their contract requirements. D. Prepare detailed, fixed-scope requirements for external vendors. Answer. B. Coach the legal department and relevant stakeholders on agile contracting models that support iterative development and value-based agreements. Traditional fixed-price, fixed-scope contracts are a significant organizational impediment to engaging external partners in an agile way, as they contradict the empirical nature of Scrum. The Scrum Master's responsibility includes educating and influencing other organizational departments. They should coach the legal department and relevant stakeholders on alternative agile contracting models, such as time and materials with a not-to-exceed clause, phased delivery, or value-based contracts, which allow for flexibility and adaptation based on learning. For example, explain how a contract based on delivering a minimal viable product, MVP, first allows for earlier market feedback and reduces risk compared to a large, fixed upfront commitment. Advocate for contractual frameworks that support agility and shared risk-reward. Question 21. A Scrum Master observes that the product owner is consistently overwhelmed with stakeholder demands and struggling to manage expectations, leading to stress and potential burnout. How can the Scrum Master best serve the product owner in this situation? A. Take on some of the product owner's stakeholder communication tasks. B. Coach the product owner on delegating product backlog item refinement and stakeholder communication to the development team. C. Advise the product owner to limit their availability to stakeholders to reduce workload. D. Coach the product owner on managing stakeholder expectations, setting boundaries, and potentially streamlining feedback loops, while also addressing organizational demand. Answer: D. Coach the product owner on managing stakeholder expectations, setting boundaries, and potentially streamlining feedback loops, while also addressing organizational demand. While the product owner is accountable for maximizing value and managing the product backlog, they can become overwhelmed by excessive stakeholder demands, especially in complex organizational contexts. The Scrum Master's role is to support and coach the product owner, helping them develop strategies for effective stakeholder management, prioritization, and communication. This includes teaching them to set realistic expectations, politely say no or not yet, and potentially improve the feedback mechanisms. For example, the Scrum Master might help the product owner facilitate a stakeholder workshop to align on priorities, thereby reducing individual, ad hoc demands. Moreover, if the demand is systemic, the Scrum Master coaches the organization on workload management. Question 22. The organizational culture is risk-averse, with a strong preference for detailed upfront planning and minimal experimentation, which hinders empiricism. What is the most impactful action for the Scrum Master? A. Demand that the organization immediately embrace high-risk experiments. B. Focus on ensuring Scrum teams perfectly execute their sprints to build trust. C. Coach leadership on the benefits of empiricism, promoting small, safe-to-fail experiments to gradually build confidence and demonstrate value. D. Suggest that Scrum is not suitable for a risk-averse organization. Answer: C. Coach leadership on the benefits of empiricism, promoting small, safe-to-fail experiments to gradually build confidence and demonstrate value. A risk-averse culture that shies away from experimentation directly contradicts Scrum's empirical foundation, transparency, inspection, adaptation. The Scrum Master's role is to influence this organizational mindset. Rather than demanding radical change, the most effective approach is to coach leadership by demonstrating the value of empiricism through small, low-risk, safe-to-fail experiments. This allows the organization to gradually experience the benefits of learning and adapting without feeling overwhelmed by perceived risk. For example, the Scrum Master could propose experimenting with a new feedback mechanism or a small process improvement in one department, measuring its impact, and then sharing the positive results. Small successes can build momentum for broader change. Question 23. An organization has multiple product owners, each responsible for a component of a larger product, leading to misalignment and conflicting priorities. What is the Scrum Master's primary guidance? A. Encourage each product owner to focus solely on their component's success. B. Coach the organization and product owners on the principle of having a single product owner accountable for the overall product, and how to manage multiple product backlogs effectively for large products. C. Suggest forming a product owner committee to vote on priorities. D. Advise the development teams to resolve priority conflicts themselves. Answer: B. Coach the organization and product owners on the principle of having a single product owner accountable for the overall product, and how to manage multiple product backlogs effectively for large products. For a single product, Scrum advocates for a single product owner accountable for maximizing its value. Having multiple product owners for components of the same product almost invariably leads to misaligned priorities, conflicting goals, and sub-optimization. The Scrum Master's advanced responsibility is to coach the organization and the product owners themselves on this critical principle. They should explain how to structure product ownership for larger products, perhaps with a lead product owner and supporting product owners or product managers, all feeding into one overarching product backlog managed by the accountable product owner. For example, illustrate how a shared product goal becomes fragmented when multiple people own pieces of the product. Clarity of accountability is essential for cohesion. Question 24. Management is concerned about the lack of control in Scrum, citing the absence of traditional project managers and detailed project plans. How should the Scrum Master address this concern? A. Offer to become a Scrum project manager to provide the desired control. B. Reassure management that control is not necessary in an agile environment. C. Coach management on how Scrum provides transparency and control through empiricism, continuous inspection of the increment, and adaptive planning. D. Introduce a new reporting tool that tracks every team member's daily tasks. Answer: C. Coach management on how Scrum provides transparency and control through empiricism, continuous inspection of the increment, and adaptive planning. Management's concern about lack of control often stems from a misunderstanding of how control is achieved in an empirical process. In Scrum, control is not about fixed upfront plans or micromanagement, it's about transparency, rapid feedback, and continuous adaptation. The Scrum Master's role is to coach management, explaining how Scrum's events, e.g., sprint review, and artifacts, e.g., product backlog, increment, provide frequent opportunities for inspection and adaptation, allowing for course correction much earlier than traditional methods. For instance, you could explain that seeing a done increment every sprint offers more concrete control than reviewing a Gantt chart. Emphasize that empiricism offers superior control in complex environments. Question 25. An organization struggles to deliver customer value frequently, despite adopting Scrum. They continuously find themselves in release trains that only happen quarterly, requiring significant integration effort at the end. What organizational aspect should the Scrum Master help address? A. The product owner is not creating a detailed enough product backlog for the quarter. B. The development teams are not sufficiently skilled in their technical practices for continuous integration and continuous delivery, CI/CD. C. The organizational structure and culture may not support a fast flow of done increments to users. D. The Scrum Master is not facilitating sprint reviews effectively enough. Answer: C. The organizational structure and culture may not support a fast flow of done increments to users. Scrum emphasizes delivering done increments frequently, ideally every sprint, to enable fast feedback and continuous value delivery. If an organization is still stuck with quarterly release trains requiring massive integration efforts, it points to systemic issues beyond individual Scrum team performance. This often indicates that the organizational structure, e.g., silos, dependencies on external teams, culture, e.g., fear of frequent releases, rigid change management processes, or technical infrastructure does not support a continuous flow of value to users. The Scrum Master's advanced responsibility is to identify these broader impediments and coach the organization to evolve towards a culture and structure that enables true continuous delivery. For instance, help the organization see how lengthy approval processes or manual testing bottlenecks hinder frequent releases. Your goal is to optimize the entire value stream, not just the teams.